So we've got this meeting of OPEC Plus, Neil, pushed out now to Thursday. Do you think there's going to be some kind of about-face saving here in terms of an agreement? And if not, what kind of short-term shocks do we see to the oil market?
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be an OPEC meeting unless we had some drama, and clearly, that's playing out at the moment in these meetings. But we fully expect that OPEC Plus will align around a decision to extend the production cuts for another 3 months beyond the 1st of January. It really gets us into the second quarter when we should start to see demand pick up. So I think what you're seeing at the moment is, certainly a little bit of jockeying between some of the members, some that have been more compliant than others, really trying to ensure that we get maximum compliance through the first quarter of the year. But ultimately, I think the deal will get done.
And if it doesn't, I guess, does this kind of set up as well a little bit of concern about fracas heading into 2021? You're saying perhaps Iran could be a threat here.
Yeah, well, I think the risks of a no deal are that, as we get into the first quarter with demand continuing to be anemic on the kind of current levels that we're seeing in the market. If we add another 2 million barrels of oil back onto the market, that's just going to push up inventories that are already, fairly bloated, and that will negatively impact pricing. So, I think the extension of the cuts are very important until we start to see a return of mobility in the market on a vaccine. I think with Iran, I think this is the big kind of risk, I think, for oil markets as we go into 2021. I mean, obviously, we've seen Iran take 2 million barrels a day of exports off the market. I think with the new Biden administration, I think the key question is how will they approach Iran? And if we see certainly an end to those sanctions and we get Iranian barrels coming back onto the market, that would certainly, be a negative for oil prices as we head into 21. I mean, it's what's generally a pretty positive picture, as I said, on a vaccine that should increase mobility levels as we go through the year.
Neil, quickly, we haven't got much time. What about, we often talk about the schism between OPEC Plus. What about OPEC itself, with it seeming that there are quite a lot of growing tensions between the UAE and Saudi?
That's right. I mean, the UAE has been surprisingly poor in its compliance, through the early part of this deal. And what we've seen over the last few months is, really, pressure being put on the UAE to increase compliance levels. And, they've done that, have taken more oil off the market. But if you look at, some of the comments from the UAE, I think they've pointed the finger at some countries like Iraq, Nigeria, Kazakhstan, and to a certain extent, Russia, and said, look, if we've
Neil?
got to show full compliance, then others do as well. And so I think that's the reason for some of the tensions that we're seeing at this meeting.
Neil, quickly again, you've done a poll on OPEC, a survey. Tell us a bit about it, because I think that most people are thinking that oil prices will be between 40 and 50 bucks a barrel for a couple of quarters at least. Tell us very, very quickly the highlights.
Yeah, I think the highlights are investors fully expect, OPEC to deliver on the extension to cut. So any decision not to do that would be a negative for the market. So it could be a bit of, buy on the rumor, sell on the fact as OPEC, delivers a result this Thursday. But by and large, I think investors are looking at a $50 barrel, price target for next year. So a bit higher than, what we are at the moment. And, generally a kind of bullish stance or slightly bullish stance as we go into 2021. I remember the key thing for oil is the vaccine, is, the recovery and mobility, which will drive demand, from the second quarter onwards, and will be positive for oil prices, I think, once we get through this weak patch.